cover Python real fast, just like our previous 5 review lessons. We're going to cover all those slides again, ask some questions, and go around, make sure everyone's on page with everything we're covering. We're going to go on and basically do another activity that we've done before to check up on our progress. And then next week, Tony will start on Java. He has a Java tutorial to give us. And what topics are you covering in Java, Tony? Next week, on Friday. So we have intro, so basically variables, lists, variables, functions, maybe. Print functions, stuff like that. So the basics of Java. It's very, very similar to Python. So if you know Python, it's going to be deja vu again when you do Java. And Java just probably a bit more formal. It has a little bit more syntax to it, but that's basically it. So if you know Python and you review Python, any object-oriented programming language, there's C. C's a little difficult, but C, Java, Perl, Ruby, among others, they all kind of follow the same format. So it's a lot easier when you know Python. So we're going to review real fast and okay. So what is Python? It's an object-oriented programming language and has objects. Can anyone tell me what an object is? And the 2 components of an object when you want to make one. Come on, guys. We covered this like 5 times. We start calling on. Okay. Saxon, name one of the components of a object. So you need 2 parts of object. What is one of the parts of object? The name. Yep, that's one. And is Luke, do you know the second part? Yeah, the data or value. So basically your data or value is your object in essence. It's what it really stands for. And your name is an abbreviation for what you want to call upon when you call upon that piece of data. Because sometimes the data is really big and you don't want to type it out at each time. So you call it something that you can make synonymous with basically that data structure. So remember, when you instantiate an object, you always have an object name and then the object value or object data. Level of Python, Python's up here, object-oriented programming language. It's using a lot of different stuff. Okay, so the print function, you do print. You can have parentheses around here too, so you can have parentheses right here and right here if you want to. But you can also have just quotation marks. And this is in Python 2, which was what we have right here. If it's in Python 3, they make you have the parentheses because they basically make the print more of a function that you can change upon, which is just some technical details. But for now, either one works. Math calculations, add, subtract, multiplication, exponential, division, remainder, and this means is equal to. I think we covered this just a tiny bit, but that way when you have those if statements, like if x equals 5, you can't put just equal sign, you have to put is equal to 5. So that's one of the problems that people run across when they do an if statement, like, hey, I say if x equals 5, do this. Why isn't that working? Well, because you're not following the right syntax format. You had to do 2 equal sign, which means is equal to. So grammatically, you want to say is x equal to this, not is x equal 5, because that's not grammatically correct. Practice, we've done this. Integers, floats, strings, booleans. Okay, we'll just go around and make sure everyone has that. Starting from down there, name one type of variable. There's 4 types of variables in Python. Name one of them. One class of variable. Right. Maybe we'll get back to you. We'll have everyone else give one, and then maybe you get a good idea of how it works. So, float. That's decimal number. Boolean, true or false. So zeros and ones. Integers, which is basically whole numbers. Close, I guess. A string is the last one. And strings, remember, you have your quotation marks at the end, so that's how you designate a string. What types of variable? We'll just do this real fast. Starting down there. First one, what type of variable? integer, float. Wait. Okay, so it's 5. Danny, is that an integer? Is that a float number? Is that a string? Or is that a Boolean? Okay, that's good. Saxon? 4.05. That's a float. Yep. 3. Boolean. 4. 5. 4.00. Danny? 4.00. What is that? No, it's a float. Okay. And then Saxon, last one?
String.
That's a string. Yep.
I'm gonna tell all the other kids in high school that you asked the kids who were absent.
Okay, so a Boolean, usually you don't instantiate a Boolean, so you wouldn't call this a Boolean. What you do have is some if statements that they're built in. So there's something called error statements. So if you have a big big program, and for instance, it only takes in like a function that only takes in like integers as the parameters, and say you put it on the website or something, someone puts in like a decimal number and it says error, you have to use integer value, something will pop up. That's what happens because you have an if statement, and if this is true, you have to instantiate that true or false as a Boolean value, and then do something like that. So that's really the only applicable way they're used. And then also to do matrices, because you sometimes have to tell in a matrix. So for instance, like you want to return a matrix or a list that says true, false for just a parameter. So like, let's say you have a list of numbers, they go from 1 to 10, and you want to return a true if it's greater than 5, and a false if it's less than 5. So then you have like true, false, false, true, depending on the number. So that way you can correspond this to that, and like, oh, this number is bigger than 5, this number is less than 5, and so on. So we did something similar where we just made 2 different lists and printed out the numbers that were bigger. But you can also do something where we have a corresponding Boolean list for that. So that's another application. Variables functions. So for the 3 major types, integer, string, and float, you can cast one variable into another type of variable. So integer, you can put in a float, and it would basically truncate that into the integer. So you have 4.7, it's going to be 4. If you have 4.2, it's going to be 4. So it's going to truncate that to the nearest integer value. A string will basically take anything you put quotation marks around it, so make it a string value. Float would basically take an integer and add some decimal points to it at the end. Okay. Python lists. You have a list name and a sequence of variables inside. You have your brackets and your commas, and then the different variables inside. They could be different types of variables too. They don't have to be one set or one class of variables. So you can have a string, then an integer, then a float. But most of the time, for application purposes, you're going to have all the variables be the same. Some examples. Other commands. Okay. Let's go other commands. Starting from down there. Give me one other command that's kind of interesting that we covered. Yeah, functions. Round is one where you have your float and then your comma, how many points you want it rounded to. Range. Range, whatever you give it, whatever integer, it's going to create a list that integer number long. So if you give it 5, range 5, it's going to give you 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 5 numbers. It starts at 0. Remember, Python is a 0-based language. Saxon. We already covered range and round. Name another function. Length. Yep. That's one where you give it a list and it's going to tell you how many members are inside that list. And Danny, the last one, which we covered last lesson, that's like the function we covered at the very end, which most of you guys should know, is. Okay. Does anyone want to help? Does anyone want to help him out? Does anyone want to help him out a bit? Or?
Ask them hard pressing questions.
Hard pressing questions.
Or does anyone want to help Danny out?
No.
No? Is it the general consensus? Alright, so the last function we covered is the append function. Remember, the append function is a little bit different from your regular functions because you need 2 things. You need a list that you want to append the new item to, and you need the item that you want to append to that list. So you have the list name, you have a period, or a dot, and then you have append, and then in parentheses you will have the variable that you want to add to the very end of that list. Loops. Name two types of loops, I guess, in that sense. If loop is one, and then yep, for loop right up there. For loop goes through a list, and it's not the actual loop because it keeps looping through and through until it gets to each item in that list. Yeah, remember for and n, the keywords, and then your colon, and then indentions right here. Example. Here's another example for count. It's going to go through set count equal to 1, print yes 1 times, set it equal to 2, print yes 2 times, and so on. If loop. And that's what Luke said. Luke, do you want to give a quick summary on the if loop? Yep, that's exactly right. You have an if statement, some kind of condition. So x is equal to 0 or something like that. And if it's true, then you just do the commands that are indented under the if statement. So you just do whatever's underneath, and then you just you're done. But if it's false, it doesn't filter. The if statement doesn't filter that item through. Then it goes to the else if statement, which is basically another if statement that says, if the first if statement is not true, then go to me, and if it fulfills my conditions, then you're going to do whatever commands are underneath. And then the else statement says, okay, so if this is false, and everything between this is false, then just do this at the very end. So Luke's exactly right when he says this is how the if statement works. Good example. We have a big list, so that's some list to instantiate. Remember your object name, which is our list name in this case, and your object value, which is a list designated by brackets and commas between the members of the list. And then we have the for loop, for x in big list, colon, and then we indent inside the for loop. And then we have a if, else statement. So if x is greater than 4, then we're going to print this. But if it's not greater than 4, but if it is less than 2, then we're going to print this. Now if it's not greater than 4 and it's not less than 2, then we're going to do this. And so it just goes through each item in this list and does all the stuff down here. All right, functions. Functions are basically a way to save a list of commands. So you can write a bunch of stuff. You can do something without ever using functions. But functions are a great way to save yourself some time, because if you write something that you plan to use like hundreds of times or something, and you want to do over and over and over again without messing up when you're typing it each and every time, then you want to define a function which is basically saves that procedure in a little function name, and they can call upon that to enact that function off different parameters as well. And remember, your function is also an object. It's a little bit different from your list or your variable, because the function, it has a function name, like any object name, but its object value is not going to be a number or a list of stuff. It's going to be a procedure, so a step-by-step of what to do with what kind of variables. And the types of variables you use in a function are your parameters. So you would say whatever parameters you want up here, and then you would call upon the same parameters down here to do your stuff, and then return something. And then if you define your function like this, and then you call upon it, you just type in function name, whatever it is, and then you would put in your specific parameters for that function. So if you want to do it for the number 5 and 3, then you put 5, 3 inside of here. All right, good example. We've done this. Final grade calculator. So we've done this. Just kind of shows you what simple Python can do and what kind of applications. Because some guy developed a website basically off of this small algorithm we developed in class a few weeks ago, and basically you can make quite a bit of money just centering a website around something that's pretty useful for the general public, in terms of calculating their final grade and what they needed to get on the final exam to maintain that A or maintain that B that they want in that class. And the solution, as we see, is pretty simple, just right here, and then we test it out a few times. This is the second problem, and we've done this before, and the solution is, remember, odd, even, and we have a list, and for x in the list, we just loop through. If x remainder is equal to 0, then we do this. Else, we have a statement, and then we print the statement. Remember, we cast the variable, which is an integer, into a string, and then we can add it to this string, so it prints out whatever number this is odd, exclamation mark. Then activity 3 is our final one, where we bring in the pin function right here, and then we do basically the same thing back here, but we, instead of doing the statement and print statement, we just append to a list that we instantiate up here. So we have odd list, even list for x. Same thing, we just append. If it's even, we add it to the even list. If it's odd, we add it to the odd list. And then we return two variables. So when you want to call upon that function, you have to put two variables are equal to. So you can't just put one name, because one object name can't have two different values. You have to give it two object names, and it's going to give it a corresponding list of different stuff. So it's going to give you an odd list for x and an even list for y. And let's do activity number 4, because it's pretty small, pretty easy. We did this last time too. So why don't we work on that real fast, and Danny, you could try working on that too. I know you weren't here, but if you work on it, if you have questions, raise your hand and we'll go around and help. And feel free to help out Danny if you guys want, because it's always a great learning process to try to teach someone else what you covered. I don't want to get on this stereotypical mistakes and just go You have a question? You can sit up here. Remember, when you define a function, you want to use general variable. So if you want to call upon later, you just want to have a def, like you would have length finder, and then you put in these specific strings. So you want, when you define a function, you want to call this list 1, call this list 2, or whatever. Wait, this is just one list, right? This is just a string. That doesn't have one. You just start But you would just have this as one list. Just call this list, and then use it for the kind of way it works. And that way it can take any list. So think about kind of like counting. So this would be a function like f of x, right? You would never say like f of 5. But if you have f of x is equal to x plus 5 or something, then you put, f of 3 would be 3 plus 5. So you call upon that function the whole time, because the step is just take anything and do anything to it. So you don't want to have anything that's specific already. You want something that's general. So call upon. Someone's excited. don't do return as your list, because return is going to kill the function right off the bat. So it's going to take the first item and then return and be done. So you want to do print. So you don't want to, actually, look up here, what does it say? Returns a list. So you should instantiate an empty list, remember that's your empty brackets, open, close, and then append, use the append function to append to that list, and then return that list outside of your for loop. So you have your for loop, everything's indented, you do all your stuff, you do your append at the end, and then without indentation, you have your return function. Oh, so if you want to, maybe it's time. So you want to find one. Then you want to, at the end of this empty link, you want to append that to this list. So you're adding it to it. So each time you go through, it's going to add the next link. And at the very end, outside of this for loop, so if you want to end it, only end it once and then the function, you want to return that list that you appended to.
What's the append function?
Dot eight, your list name dot append, and then your variable in parentheses. So you can use X, because it's going to be a length of, it's going to be a list of strings. X is already equal. Remember, this is your name. So you don't have to have quotation marks. That's all for this. You can set this equal to string and zero, not string. So you don't need to have this. So just go length of X. That should work. So remember, guys, when you instantiate, use one single equal sign. And then if you want to do if statement, like is equal to, is this equal to, then you do the double equal sign. So when we instantiate, say this is this, just put one. I'll say this is equal to, then two. Undo that.
Danny, you being productive over there?
Only doing some funny stuff.
Oh boy. I don't like you.
So Saxon, what was your function name that you called it?
How underscore long.
How long? And then what about you guys? What was your function name? Danny, what was your function name?
Yeah, Danny. Easy crush.
Wait. So how's that relevant to our task at hand?
Then you wrote it. Landing your team.
Anyway, though.
Danny, man, you're terrible.
All right, or is it just? Looks like you should be pretty.
You say that now, but wait until I get all the good points. You're holding me
Well,
back.
it's not working.
It's working.
I don't know how to fix it.
Hey, come on. Just people that.
Zach, you can help him out. Wait, Saxon, do you like grab eat your fill and then grab like somewhat like extra food to bring with you, or
Yeah.
it's quite a bit of food?
And
You grab the day, just like
kind of everything. There was turkey, there was like cranberry stuff, there were mashed potatoes, there was a bunch of gravies. We had pumpkin pies, we had cupcakes. I don't know. I don't see non-IB kids there, but I mean, if you pay the $2, I don't think ESIP will care.
like is it working?
Oh, okay, that's why I want to use it.
Like, hey, I'm taking an IB class. That means it is buffet.
Probably some syntax. Might do some.
I mean, you're not required, your parents are not required to
So
do
main
stuff,
will be the listening. The main is
yes.
my scope.
Thank you for correcting me, man. You already have a list, and you have a list. Oh, wait. Wait, oh, wow. Okay, don't define a function as a list, because I don't know what that does anymore. Yeah, he done goofed it all up. He made a list, and then he named the function that list, and now it's broken. It broke it, man. Yeah.
So you call the list. So that list is gone now. Okay. Or wait.
So if it still work, I just need to add the. Well, it's just a function name, so if I try to function with actual parameters, would it still work because this list is gone now? It should, yeah. All right, Danny, what do you got? All right, so let's begin with everything. Okay, start here. Do you know what the first line does?
That's what you're going to call it.
Yes.
Unique. What you do is
If word.
you add to it, and then you set it
Using
zero.
the parameter of list.
No, zero. So you just need to make a zero at the start, and then you want to set it as empty again.
The
Because
P person comes to function,
add.
but the parameter, what the function will
So
use
you only want
is the list.
the only
So if you like
reason
write
the two values,
So like after you create
you
it,
have any values at the
it's
start.
just telling
When
you
you go through the list,
once you hit peak pressure.
the first one is
If
500
P
on
pressure,
pressure 5,
put it
and
whatever.
then all of a sudden it's 4,
Put A,
4,
because A is
and
something
you go
else.
ahead and need it.
P pressure becomes a generic function.
Take that out.
Whatever. The list, however, is something dynamic, which you can change later on. So maybe you've got a new list from your coworkers yesterday, you're like, oh man, I gotta run this through my function. And so you pull up your function and you put in the list there. So the function doesn't change, but the list can, as you get new and different lists. All right, next line. Do you know what this is saying?
Isn't that identify the list?
This is making a list within the function for things that happen to it, because your function can't create a thing per se.
So what are you trying to find?
Oh, well, like, this is pretty much what goes in the list.
Right, you're creating a list within the function, because what you're trying to do is saying, hey, let's put somewhere in list x, x is each item. Now you have an empty list for you to put stuff in.
You want to find length of x, right? Not length of your function.
All right, I think next line.
Well, I think something like this. When you say it's like x, so it's everything in the list.
X, it can be x, it can be like hair, it can be whatever. It actually doesn't matter. It's a name you give to the variables that are going to be in the list. So, for example, let's say you're going to make your brand new list. You're like, oh man, I'm so excited. And so you plug that in. X is just referring to anything that's in there, any data, any formula, any integer, any float, whatever, for every one of those things in the list. We move on to the next line. Right. So where did we see the word length? You want to express as return for x number of list, add or append onto the empty list, append onto the empty list, the length of x. Where did we see x? Right. We're going to change the length of x in the list, and we're going to append that, whatever that length may be, into the empty list. Not exactly. You're putting the length of x. You can see here, like ASA, that's just a random letter, but it's 3 letters. That's what you're putting into the empty list. How long is it? Length. How long is it? That's 3 letters.
So you're putting in the length of x, not x itself.
Right. Length of x, and you're putting that into the empty list that you created earlier. So
Right.
you always have to have
Danny, good? You good now?
pretty much.
So I'll just walk through the solution real fast, and then we'll move on. So here's the solution, right? You have your you have to define a function. I'm just calling mine how long. And then you have your parentheses, which designate the start of the parameters, which are the variables that you're going to look at, or the objects that you're going to take into the function and then do something to, and then give your output. So in this case, we're just having a list. I'm just going to call a list generic. Then you enter with the colon, remember colon, enter tab, and then instantiate a empty list. So that's basically open and close brackets. So you length of list is equal to open, close. That way, so we can start appending to that as we go through that for loop, so we can keep adding the length of each item in that list as we get to each item. So for string and list, string will be basically the variable name in this case. So string will be a variable inside of the list up here. And for each of these strings, we're going to find the length of that string and set that equal to the variable length. So it's going to be a length of string. And then we're going to append that length, which is length of string, up to the length list up here. So each time it goes through, if this is like, list of 3 variables, it's going to append the length of the first one after it goes through here once to this list. So it's going to have 1 value. Then you go back again to the second item, find how long that item is, and then append that to this list as well. And then you just keep going on and on. At the end, you return the length list, which will give you basically this. Once it's completed, once each item has been appended to it via this for loop, and then you kill the function and you spit out the output basically. And so this is basically how it looks. You do how long, and we have our brackets and our list of 3 different strings, and it's going to tell you this is 3 long, this is 6 long, and this is 4 long, as you can see down here. So that's basically the format. Yours could be a bit different. You can shorten this to 1 line if you do length.append, length of string instead of length right here. But basically that's the structure you're going to be looking at. So we're done with Python. Is everyone pretty relieved or pretty happy at least? Yeah. So we're going to be talking about Java, in a bit, and that's a new programming language, and it's very similar to Python. So I would advise you guys to look over Python, especially if you feel a little bit uncertain about some of the syntax or places of it. So once you get Python down, code, then you'll be able to definitely cover Java pretty easily. So that's it.